The senator from Hawaii.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to give a status report on this bill. Right now, we think it's with the 13 men who are working on it in secret. They will show it to Republican lobbyists, and then they will send it over to the CBO for a score, and eventually the American public and the Senate will be able to see the bill. And we will have a process called Vote-A-Rama, which is mostly nonsense. And there will be lots of opportunities to offer amendments, but let's be clear what happens at the end of Vote-A-Rama. The leader will offer an amendment in the nature of a substitute. So what does that mean? That means that all of the amendments that were adopted along the way get taken out with 151 vote margin, and all of that Vote-A-Rama was for show because Mitch McConnell will put his bill on the floor that was negotiated in secret with those 13 people. If there was any question that our democracy is being rolled over by Senate Republicans, I want you to think about these 13 men. They are drafting a bill without any input from women, from Democrats, from experts, and by working in secret, they are cutting out about 250 million people who are from the 40 states who aren't represented among those 13 men. And you can bet that those 40 states have unique health care needs and unique health care laws. And without the right language, the bill could throw health care in each of those states or any of those states into total chaos. They've also cut out senators on the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee and the Finance Committee, even though these committees are actually constructed for the purpose of working on legislation like this. They know how to get things done like this. There are members of the Health Committee and the Finance Committee that are among the experts on this issue, and yet they don't get a chance to even see the bill. These senators have jurisdiction over this legislation, but they're being left out. And this is just not the way it's supposed to work. We need transparency, we need bipartisanship, but now the Republicans will try to tell you that, hearings are bypassed all the time. That's not true. That's not true. In fact, this body will hold a hearing on almost anything. In 2017 alone, the Senate has had hearings on hot tub safety, self-driving cars, a treaty for outer space, multimodal shipping, and the Maritime Administration, and dozens of other issues. Look, those are actually not to be trivialized. It is important for the Senate to have hearings. It's important for subcommittees to do their work. But nobody can tell me that hot tub safety, self-driving cars, a treaty for outer space, multimodal shipping, the Maritime Administration are more important than 1/6 of the American economy. It's a joke. We're talking about 1/6 of the American economy, about millions of jobs, and people with life-threatening diseases and life-changing medical bills. And so we know how important hearings are to do legislation. When the Senate took up ACA, there were almost 100 hearings. Think about that, 100 hearings versus 0. There were roundtables, there were walkthroughs held by the two committees. We considered hundreds of amendments and accepted more than 150 amendments from Republicans. But for this bill, no markup, no transparency, no bipartisanship, just 13 men meeting in secret outside of the regular process. And the only thing that has changed is now the market is under siege, but the market is under siege because of the Republican administration. They are purposefully creating uncertainty, and that's not a rhetorical flourish. They're saying they're doing that. President Trump actually said he wanted to create uncertainty in the healthcare market in order to create leverage with Democrats. Think about how unusual that is. Think about how offensive that is. It is perfectly appropriate for one party to try to generate leverage in a negotiation against the other. That's part of politics, either in an election context or in the public policy context. But the way that this president and Tom Price are trying to generate leverage is by raising health care premiums in order to force Democrats to buckle. That's unheard of. It really is unheard of. And it hurts everybody across the country to create this uncertainty. It's bad enough that the Republicans are trying to take health care away from 23 million people, from nursing home patients and their families, from women who are pregnant or fighting breast cancer, from sons and daughters and moms and dads who struggle with opioids. But to add insult to injury, they're going to jam it down your throat. You don't get to read what it's about before it passes, or hear from doctors or nurses or experts about how it will affect you. So why are they working on this bill in secret? And the answer is very simple. The bill stinks. They're ashamed of it. The bill itself is an embarrassment. The process is an embarrassment. They've said so themselves. No matter how you look at this bill is a disaster for people and their families. It will be a disaster for anyone who relies on Medicaid, which will be cut by at least $800 billion. And Medicaid is a safety net for people who need care but can't afford it. Look at nursing home care. Medicaid covers 3 out of every 4 long-stay nursing home residents. Medicaid covers 3 out of 4 long-stay nursing home residents. And my wife's grandmother was just in a nursing home and just passed away and had great care and wouldn't have been able to get the care that she needed were it not for Medicaid. And this is not an uncommon story. These are millions of Americans across the country, by the way, of all income levels. People think of Medicaid as people who are financially not in a position to get care in any given moment. That's true. It does take care of the poor, but it also takes care of nursing home care for people who worked all their lives and just don't have enough. It's $9,000 a month in the state of Hawaii for nursing home care. It's more than that for hospice care. We all know nobody escapes end-of-life care. Rich or poor, left or right, red, blue, purple, nobody escapes this part of your life. And everybody needs help. There might be a few people who save up enough cash money to be able to shell out $10,000 a month for that kind of care. But for the rest of us, Medicaid is that lifeline. There are actually some Republicans who don't want to cut Medicaid. They've seen how the program improves people's lives. Arkansas, Kentucky, for example, they expanded Medicaid. These states have seen big jumps in the number of people who now have their own doctor or have gotten a checkup in the past year. People who are now more likely to say that they're in excellent health. But under Trumpcare, we'll be back to the bad old days. This bill is also a disaster for older people who will be hit with what the AARP is calling an age tax. And this will get a little wonky, not as wonky as my colleague who spoke about 5 minutes ago, but a little wonky. Right now, companies are not allowed to charge any more than 3 times as much for an older person as a younger person. 3 times is the cap. But Trumpcare will increase that rate to 5 times. And so what happens is every year as you get older, your insurance costs will go up and up and up and up. That's why they call it an age tax. In other words, many seniors will see premium increases that could cost them thousands of dollars more each year at a time when people are already struggling to find the money to pay for health care. This is also a disaster for patients who don't want to lose their health care provider. Right now, an estimated 1 in 5 women go to Planned Parenthood clinics. And I understand that we have different views about reproductive choice. I understand that. But we also understand, when we're talking on the level about Planned Parenthood, and we're talking about the federal funding for Planned Parenthood, everybody who pays any bit of attention to this understands what Planned Parenthood does for women across the country. Again, conservative women, progressive women, Planned Parenthood doesn't care. And Planned Parenthood is not using federal funding for abortion. We all know that by now. It's cancer screenings, it's quality health care, and birth control. People talk about giving more choices for health care and saving taxpayers money, but the CBO estimates that defunding Planned Parenthood will take away options for nearly 400,000 women across the country, and it will cost taxpayers more than $130 million. It's also a disaster for those who are struggling with opioid addiction. This bill will take away treatment for mental health and addiction, leaving hundreds of thousands of people fighting opioid addiction without adequate health insurance. We saw the statistics that opioid addiction, I believe, is killing more people annually than HIV/AIDS killed at its apex. I believe it has either surpassed or is comparable in terms of the cause of death with car accidents. This is one of the leading killers in the country. And Medicaid is the program that funds opioid addiction for most of the people who get help. This bill is also a disaster for patients with pre-existing conditions because it means we're going to go back to the dark days when insurance companies could charge you more for having a pre-existing condition. I've heard from people back home in Hawaii who are terrified of what this could mean for their health. One woman wrote that she's in the middle of a fight for her life against breast cancer. And she's scared that under Trumpcare she will lose her insurance. She'll have to stop her treatments and she could lose her life. A husband wrote to me that his wife has stage 4 breast cancer. She's had every possible treatment and surgery imaginable to extend her life, but without the guarantee of affordable coverage for all, her fight will quickly come to an end. She's 29. Even people without serious medical conditions will be affected by this pre-existing conditions nonsense, and we know that because before the Affordable Care Act became law, insurance companies were able to discriminate based on what they determined to be a pre-existing condition. One woman in Hawaii told me that in the days before the Affordable Care Act, she was rejected by insurance companies because she had back pain at one point in her life. The pain never came back, and she never needed treatment again. And she was young and healthy, but the insurance company wouldn't give her insurance. We cannot accept the end of nationwide protections for people with pre-existing conditions. We cannot accept high premiums or so-called high-risk pools that have historically failed in giving people the coverage that they need and they deserve. Look, we don't have to do it this way. We don't have the majority, and this is being done under a process called reconciliation, which means that you don't need a filibuster-proof majority, you just need 51 votes. So if you're proud of your bill, you've got Senator Hatch, he's the chairman of the Finance Committee, one of the most respected Republicans in the country, actually. You've got Senator Alexander, likewise, the chairman of the Health, Education, Labor, and Pensions Committee. Both of them have a long history of being able to do deals. Orrin Hatch with Teddy Kennedy and my predecessor, Danny Noy. Lamar Alexander with just about everybody, Chuck Schumer, Patty Murray. I mean, these are conservative members of the Senate, no doubt about their Republican credentials, but they're also people who are capable of crafting legislation in the right way. And I have no doubt that they like their gavels. I have no doubt that they like chairing hearings. And I have no doubt that they have the personal, intellectual, emotional, political stamina to go through a process that may take more than a couple of days. And I'll tell you, this is the world's greatest deliberative body. It is. And this is a bunch of impressive people who I serve with in the United States Senate. But you know what? Without a hearing, you get a garbage product. You get a bill that just stinks, that staffers say that they are keeping secret because, quote, we're not stupid. They are so embarrassed at this product that they are keeping it secret because they know the moment this thing gets posted, everybody from everybody's home state, and not just Democratic states and not just purple states, but every home state is going to say, my community health center is going to get shut down. Wait a second, my opioid treatment program is going to get shut down. My hospital may no longer exist. They know this bill stinks. And there is a simple solution. All we need is 3 Republicans to say, let the Senate be the Senate. House did whatever the House was going to do. There was a weird White House Rose Garden signing ceremony without a bill even being enacted. It was the most bizarre thing I've ever seen, where everybody was congratulating each other for inflicting pain on the American people. But the Senate has to be the Senate here. And what that means is that we have to be that cooling saucer, right? We have to actually slow down and have a deliberative process. And all we need is 3 members of the United States Senate on the Republican side to say a very simple thing. And they can be as critical of Obamacare as they want. They can be as partisan against us as they want. But all they have to say is this: I'm not voting for a bill that doesn't get a hearing. I'm not voting for a bill that doesn't get a hearing. Let this thing see the light of day. I yield the floor.